In a time lost to historical memory, the kingdom of Valeria flourished under the aegis of its formidable guardian, the dragon Eltharion. Valeria's inhabitants held Eltharion in profound reverence, for he resided atop Mount Caledorn, a monolithic peak perpetually enveloped in mist and legend. The dragon's roar, resonant and formidable, echoed through the valleys as a proclamation of peace and a dire warning to potential invaders. However, this tranquility was abruptly shattered by the rise of an ancient and malevolent entity, the Shadow Lord. Emerging from the unfathomable depths of the abyss, this sorcerer sought to usurp Valeria's power for his own nefarious purposes. With him came an army of nightmarish creatures, spreading decay, fear, and chaos across the once prosperous land. The verdant fields turned barren, and rivers that once sparkled with life became polluted and lifeless. The people of Valeria, once joyful and prosperous, now lived in constant fear of what lurked in the darkness. The king of Valeria, overwhelmed by the looming threat and desperate to protect his people, called upon the kingdom's most valiant warrior, a young woman named Elira. Elira had spent her life in rigorous training, honing her skills in swordsmanship, discipline, and strategy. Her resolve was as unyielding as her compassion was boundless. She had dedicated countless hours to mastering her craft, often pushing herself beyond the limits of her physical endurance, driven by a deep-seated desire to protect her homeland. Understanding the magnitude of the challenge before her, she accepted the king's plea without hesitation. Armed with her enchanted sword, forged by the ancient arts and blessed by Eltharion himself, Elira set out from Mount Caledorn to seek the dragon's counsel and assistance. The journey to Mount Caledorn was fraught with peril. The once familiar paths that led to the mountain had become treacherous, filled with lurking dangers. As she climbed the steep, winding trails, Elira encountered hostile creatures, twisted by the Shadow Lord's influence. These creatures were grotesque, with distorted features and eyes that glowed with malice. Despite their frightening appearance, Elira faced them with unwavering courage, her sword cutting through the darkness that had corrupted them. Upon reaching Mount Caledorn, Elira found Eltharion greatly diminished, his once resplendent scales dulled, and his powerful eyes clouded with exhaustion. The Shadow Lord had cast a potent curse that had drained the dragon of his vitality. Eltharion, once a majestic symbol of strength and hope, now appeared frail, his wings barely able to lift him. Elira quickly realized that only by confronting and defeating the Shadow Lord could she hope to restore Eltharion's strength. In a weakened but steady voice, the dragon spoke of a critical vulnerability in the sorcerer's power, a gemstone enshrined within his staff, the very source of his dark dominion. This gemstone was not merely a reservoir of power. It was the nexus of all the dark magic that bound the Shadow Lord's malevolent will to the world. Destroying this gem would strip the Shadow Lord of his defenses, rendering him powerless and vulnerable to attack. Eltharion explained that the gem was protected by a series of dark enchantments, each more insidious than the last, and only the purest intent could shatter its core. The dragon's voice trembled as he spoke, his eyes locking onto Elira's with a mixture of hope and fear. "You must be resolute, Elira," Eltharion urged. "The gem is no ordinary artifact. It will fight back, attempting to corrupt any who dare to destroy it. Only someone with an unbreakable spirit can succeed." To aid her in this perilous mission, Eltharion entrusted Elira with a fragment of his own scale, imbued with a faint blue luminescence that promised to shield her from harm. The shard was not just a piece of his physical being. It contained a portion of his essence, his enduring will to protect Valeria. The shard pulsed with a gentle warmth, a tangible reminder of the dragon's strength, resilience, and the hope that still flickered for Valeria. As Elira took the shard into her hand, she felt a surge of energy, a connection that transcended words, binding her to Eltharion and the fate of the kingdom. She knew, deep in her heart, that this journey would be the ultimate test of her courage and determination. Elira embarked on her journey into the heart of darkness, her resolve unbroken. She traversed perilous forests whose ancient trees seemed malevolent, their twisted branches reaching out as though to ensnare her. The forest seemed alive, whispering threats in a language only the corrupted could understand. She crossed desolate plains under a sky forever darkened by storm clouds, the ground cracked and scorched by the sorcerer's dark magic. Throughout her journey, she faced grotesque creatures born of darkness, each confrontation testing her strength, skill, and spirit. As she ventured deeper, the shard from Aeltharion grew ever brighter, serving as both a beacon and a reminder of her purpose. She often clutched it tightly during moments of despair, feeling the dragon's spirit urging her onward. During her journey, Elira encountered remnants of Valeria's once vibrant communities, villages that had been abandoned, their homes reduced to rubble. She met survivors who had fled the Shadow Lord's wrath, their faces gaunt with fear and exhaustion. Despite her own trials, Elira took the time to offer them words of hope, sharing what little food she had and reminding them that Valeria had not yet fallen. These moments, though brief, gave her the strength to press on, knowing that her fight was not just for the kingdom, but for the lives of those who still believed in a better future. After an arduous journey, Elira finally reached the Shadow Lord's lair, a fortress hewn into the jagged cliffs of the abyss. The air was thick with the acrid stench of decay, and above her, the sky churned with malevolent energy. Within the fortress, the Shadow Lord awaited, his figure cloaked in darkness, his eyes smoldering like embers. His voice echoed through the cavernous hall, dripping with malice and contempt. "You dare challenge me, mortal?" he hissed, his staff raised high. The gemstone embedded within the staff pulsed with a sickly green radiance, emanating dark power that seemed to sap the very hope from the air. Though fear gripped her heart, Elira stood firm. She knew what was at stake, not merely her life, but the lives of all those she cherished. With a roar that resonated with the spirit of Aeltharion, she launched herself at the Shadow Lord. The ensuing battle was fierce and relentless, the clash of her enchanted blade against his dark sorcery reverberating through the ancient halls. Shadows coalesced around her, trying to ensnare her, but the shard Aeltharion had given her glowed with a warm, protective light, warding off the sorcerer's most potent curses. Each strike she delivered was met with a wave of dark energy, but Elira's resolve never wavered. The battle seemed endless, each moment stretching into eternity as she fought against the overwhelming power of the Shadow Lord. Amid the chaotic struggle, Elira glimpsed an opening. The Shadow Lord, in his arrogance, raised his staff to deliver a decisive blow, exposing the gemstone. Summoning every ounce of her strength, Elira lunged forward, her blade striking true. The gem shattered with an explosive force, fragments scattering like shattered glass. The Shadow Lord let out an otherworldly scream as his dark essence began to unravel, his form disintegrating into a cloud of ash and dust. The oppressive darkness that had enveloped Valeria began to dissipate, the storm clouds parting as the first light of dawn broke through. The walls of the fortress trembled, and the twisted architecture began to collapse as the sorcerer's magic lost its grip on the world. Elira, her body bruised and weary, made her way back to Mount Caledorn. The journey back was no less arduous, her energy nearly depleted from the fierce battle. She stumbled through the desolate landscape, her steps slow and heavy. Yet, each time she felt herself faltering, she remembered the faces of the villagers, the hope in their eyes, and the trust they had placed in her. At long last, she reached the foot of Mount Caledorn, where she found Aeltharion already regaining his vitality. His scales shimmered with renewed light, the dullness that had once plagued him now replaced by a radiant glow. The great dragon bowed his head to her, a gesture of profound respect and gratitude. "You have saved us all, noble warrior," he said, his voice resonating with both power and deep emotion. Tears filled Elira's eyes, and she smiled, knowing that this victory had not been hers alone. It had been the product of the courage of Valeria's people, the wisdom of Aeltharion, and her own unyielding resolve. Upon her return to the kingdom, Elira was greeted with jubilant celebration. The people of Valeria hailed her as a hero, her deeds immortalized in songs and chronicles. The streets were adorned with banners, and the air was filled with music and laughter. Children ran alongside her, their eyes wide with admiration, and elders bowed their heads in respect. Yet, despite the adulation, Elira remained humble, understanding that true heroism lay not in the pursuit of glory, but in the quiet determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. As the festivities continued, Elira stood at the edge of the castle's battlements, gazing toward Mount Caledorn, where Eltharion's roar once again echoed, a reminder of hope, resilience, and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. Thus, the legend of Elira and Aeltharion endured, a narrative of valor, sacrifice, and the enduring light that could pierce even the deepest darkness. Valeria prospered, and though new challenges would inevitably arise, its people knew that, united, no darkness could ever truly conquer them. The story of Elira became a symbol of the strength found in unity and the power of an unyielding spirit. It was a tale passed down through generations, reminding the people of Valeria that even in the face of overwhelming darkness, there would always be those willing to stand against it, those whose courage could light the way for others. And as long as that light existed, Valeria would never fall to darkness.